Thanks for joining us this week on the show. I am joined by Raquel Devillé, a neurodiversity therapist and creator of the Encore Method. She brings her wisdom, her insights, her calming practices to us today, speaking to how neurodivergent women and others can benefit from self-reflection, self-care, and some beautiful practices that will only take minutes through the course of your day. Thank you for joining us this week. Enjoy the episode. It's time to flip the script on stress and learn how to thrive today and throughout your days. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and well-being. I'm your host, Susi Vine. Let's get happified. Welcome back. I am so happy to have you with me today on the show for a conversation that I know is going to be insightful for all of us. I am joined today by Raquel Devillé, a neurodiversity therapist and creator of the Encore Method, designed to help atypical women embrace their neurodiversity without medication or traditional therapies. Raquel supports her clients in managing chronic stress, anxiety, sensory overload, and social exhaustion by reconnecting them with their bodies and empowering them to live authentically. I'm so glad that we've been connected, Raquel. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me for your show. I'm so thrilled to be here with you.
I am always looking for new, natural, integrative modalities that help us overcome differences or issues in the ways that we react with this world. And the world right now is so overstimulating, to say the least, especially, I would guess, as someone who is neurodivergent. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, how you came into this space and to have this passion to develop this method.
Okay, so I started with trauma actually. So I specialized in trauma, and I realized that some things were adapted to me, but I wasn't that traumatized. So of course I'm traumatized like everybody, but some things felt different. So I started to read a lot and do a lot of research, and thanks to my kids, I arrived in the neurodiversity world. And when I started studying, suddenly it started to make sense. Some of my behaviors, my kids' behaviors that were similar to mine at their age, but also as an adult. And with things making sense, I explored more and more and more. And I realized that all these somatic approaches used for trauma, they can also work very well for neurodivergent people with some adaptations from time to time.
I love that. And I'm a big fan of somatic approaches. So some people might not be familiar with those. So could you give us an idea of what some of those are and how they can help people with trauma?
Basically, there's a bottom-up approach. So we start in the body to, let's say, heal the mind, okay? Because often the problems, they are stuck in the body and stuck and stocked in the body. And also the solution. So when there is a stress and we cannot like finish the cycle of the stress response, this stress gets somewhere stuck in the body and it has to be released by the body as well. And sometimes we do remember some kind of traumatic event, but trauma usually it's implicit. So we don't really remember what happens, but the body does. And it's from there that we will release the body. And for example, sometimes people, they have pain, let's say pain in the back or in the shoulder, or I don't know, some kind of pain that it hurts a lot. And they go to somewhere to take care of the pain, and they have the answer that, oh, that is psychosomatic. And people are immediately, oh my God, they don't understand me. This is real pain because I feel it in the body. And this is like someone telling me that I'm crazy. And oh my God. But it's some kind of stress and the body is saying something. So that pain there that really hurts, actually it's very physical because the body is saying something, because something needs to be done. And yeah, so the somatic, it's always related to the body, and often it helps solving the psycho side of it. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Absolutely. And I think it's funny how words become loaded. Psychosomatic simply means, I think, in my simplified understanding of biological terms, that there's a psychological and somatic body connection, and that the pain is arising from a psychological influence. People feel like you're saying, I'm crazy, I'm inventing this pain. And there are so many invisible disorders that can cause pain. I'm thinking of fibromyalgia at the moment, but there are a number of them. And they're mysterious, they're hard to find the root of. And I do believe that there are books like The Body Keeps the Score, the emotional impact, the way that body becomes sort of a library for our
Mm-hmm.
experiences when we don't release those emotions that then at some point need to be reckoned with in some fashion.
Yeah, and there's another book. So you have The Body Keeps the Score, but there is also another one called When the Body Says No, that actually makes the connection between trauma and our more modern diseases and illnesses. So basically, often they are related to unresolved trauma and stress. But it's the way that it's said to people that, oh, that's psychosomatic, it's in your head. So it's not really a problem, get over it. And yeah, I would love to. That's what I'm trying to do here. Like, my back hurts, that's why I came. So I'm trying to solve the problem. I'm trying to get over it, and I would if I could. And often the solution is also in the body. And we can get over it, but not just like that, say, okay, so now I'm fine and everything is good. No, sometimes there's some work to be done, even if it's in the body and the solution it's there and it's natural.
And how did you find these somatic exercises beneficial then for yourself and your family after you learned about them through your work in reckoning with the trauma?
So it started with me. So I had, for some periods of my life, I had a lot of stress, and then this stress accumulated. And when I had kids, sometimes I was getting really stressed, especially in the morning. So the mornings were particularly hard because having to get them dressed to go to school, and then they ask for something, and then there's noise, and then I was going like nuts. And I realized that I was getting very stressed with this morning routine, and I had to do something about it. So I started yoga. And I didn't find immediately my style, but with time I found, and it really calmed me down. It really helped me calming down. And I realized at that moment that, okay, it was breathing, but also the fact that when practicing, I had to do so many things to focus just to get the pose right. And I realized that this was helping me to calm down. And then from there, I moved to yoga therapy and then all the trauma approaches. So I started with trauma sensitive yoga and TRE. And then I moved on to somatic experiencing and then more trauma. So different layers of trauma. Yeah, so now I'm developing the family constellation side of it.
And
Yeah,
so
so
for some people who are perhaps not familiar with somatic experiencing, that's tuning into your body and asking yourself questions like, what does this emotion feel like if it had a color, if it had a shape or a size? Is that kind of the line of personal inquiry there?
yeah, exactly. You always bring your awareness to what's going on in your body, the different sensations. And there's this pendulation between an unpleasant sensation and a pleasant sensation, and how it shifts in your body when you bring your awareness to it. And at a certain time, you really feel it changing, and it really changes the way you perceive things. Yeah, so there's a lot more to explain, but it's a really great technique that changed my life along with the others. And it was developed by Peter Levine, and he has also many books. So the first one I read was Waking the Tiger, and then In an Unspoken Voice, and so on. All of them great books.
It's such an insightful practice because I think it's so hard for many of us to tune in to the messages coming from our body. There's so much input coming in from our external world that those quiet messages and signals can be so hard to discern. So that inquiry I find so inviting and just a beautiful practice in centering and really looking inward. And I'm not familiar with TRE. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So TRE, it's a series of exercises that we do in order to bring some tension to the muscles, and this tension will make the body tremor. And it's an involuntary tremor, and it's a natural reaction of the body when we have a stress. So there is this fight or flight response, but the nervous system, autonomic nervous system, decides that we risk more our lives if we either fight or flight. It makes us freeze. And if we were in nature after this freeze response to release all the chemicals that were released in the body and also the tension and everything that happens to fight or flight, and it does not happen when you freeze because there's no movement. So the movement that comes after, it's this tremoring, so the body can release the tension and the chemicals. And then life goes on without trauma. So there's this completion of the stress response cycle. And what we do in TRE, it's to do exercises to induce this tremoring, and this tremoring will help release all this accumulated stress in the body.
Beautiful. So you can use it even, say, long after an event, a situation, perhaps working with trauma, if you need to. I mean, it's hard sometimes in those situations where we freeze or fawn to then be able to. So it can kind of go back and help to clear.
Yeah, you can go and just release tension, not necessarily thinking of what happens. So what is great about all these somatic approaches is that you will not relieve the traumatic event. It's just the body releasing, and it just goes away. And sometimes it can be more pleasant, sometimes a little unpleasant. But the thing is, as long as you feel safe, all is good. And then you can release and relief. And what is great about all these techniques is that after a certain time, so depending on the technique, some are easier to implement on your own than the others, is that you can actually use them alone. So being independent, you don't need a therapist all the time when you integrate the practice.
Marvelous. And so I think that's really empowering for people. I'm always a big advocate of new tools for the toolkit so that we have them ready. Sometimes self-care is a lot to take on, especially as you were talking about your experience as a young mother trying to corral the children at the end of the day. Most of us are exhausted and not wanting to think about what can I do to take care of myself right now. So if we have these tools at the ready and we become more aware of our bodies and what we need to come back into balance, then we can just pull this tool out. We don't have to think about it and go coordinate with a therapist or a provider or receive treatment. So I love these self-care practices that we can cultivate.
Yeah, so actually, I wrote a book that it's called It's Not Your Period. Like when you feel really angry or really, and that there's someone that, oh, maybe it's your period. And it's not your period because it was last week. So there's no way, no way. And sometimes it can be like neurodiversity kicking in. So in my book, I have lots of these exercises for self-care that are really easy to implement and very fast to do. So the idea is that you do them in 5 minutes a day maximum, because for me more than 5 minutes a day it's too long and I get bored really fast, and I won't do it if it takes a long time. So I need very short techniques that I can use. They can be different or not, but the idea is to have very short techniques like a breathing exercise that it goes deep enough, but it's fast enough. So I have time to do it while preparing my coffee, for example, in the morning, or just before, like waking up and going to wake up my kids, like in that time, in that period, that I can do everything right there. Because I know then the day starts and I don't have the time, And even if I have the time, I know there's something that, okay, I have the time, I'll wait 5 more minutes. In the meantime, I'll do this, and I won't do it. So for me, it's really important to do them in the morning. Then, of course, this changes from one person to the other. Some people might prefer to do it in the evening, but the whole idea it's to keep it very short and not boring, so it's easier to implement.
I think that makes it so applicable, really. It's so tangible then when you feel like it's not a big commitment, you don't have to leave the house, you can do it in these little windows of opportunity through your day. But I agree entirely. The morning is the opportunity. I always say, oh, I don't have that 20 minutes for yoga right now. I'll do it later. And even that, some people would say 20-minute yoga practice, short attention span, but that's what works for me. And if I don't get it done first thing in the morning, the day is away from me. So that's
Hmm.
beautiful. I love that. And will people find your book on Amazon or through your website?
Through my website it's easier, so it's encore.be, and there's a French version and an English version, and it's easier to find it on my website, and for the moment it's free, so
Ooh,
exactly.
fabulous. We'll definitely send people there to collect on that. I love these kinds of tools. So you're already being very generous with us. Thank you. And you've been talking about your experience managing the house, getting yourself out of the house in the morning. I am a stepmother. I didn't raise young children myself. And my hat is always off to the women who get the kids out of the house and themselves on time. It's a feat for myself. In your experience, then working with other women and certainly neurodiverse women, where do you find they benefit from them and how do you find these practices support them?
If they get this like overstimulation from noise in the morning, they can really help. It's practices that basically help in managing like situations, daily situations that might occur, and also help to deal with overstimulation that actually comes from different sources. And the thing is that they can use them for themselves, but they can also use it for their kids. So there are some techniques that are easy and simple enough. They can like try on their kids, because often neurodivergent women have neurodivergent kids. And these techniques are also easy enough to be used by kids. And so like being done together, what helps the whole family actually manage. But basically, while writing my book and developing while studying and also developing my framework, what I realized it really improved my life as a person, and this helped improve family life as well, because I'm calmer and more peaceful, and then this will show and it will improve what goes on.
And I think we're really at a beautiful place right now where we women are making this opportunity, putting the focus on our mental health and our emotional well-being and carving out the time to establish these practices. And by example, children are recognizing the importance of happiness and coming into more of an emotional balance. And I think that them growing up with these tools is remarkable because I feel like they have a vocabulary about emotions that wasn't available to us when we were younger. It might have been different growing up in Europe, but I know here in the US, that was not anything that was any kind of focus or priority for most of us. And I feel like it really is a tipping point in the awareness and that then emotional capacity for children to have these tools. So I think that's extraordinary, not only to benefit and support mothers who deserve all the opportunities for a little centering and calm that they can get, but also to bring more calm to their children by example and by giving them these tools. So I love that.
Another thing that for me was very important that I realize now, it's like to understand yourself better. So you understand yourself better, then you understand your kids or those around you, not necessarily your kids, it can be your family, your partner, I don't know, anyone. So you start to understand yourself better, how you react, what goes on inside your body, because that's what comes with all these techniques. And it gives you another perspective of how life actually is and how it can be. And from there, things get easier because suddenly there is this, oh, okay, so I'm like this goes on like this, and therefore I can actually do things or differently and improve here or improve there, or things sometimes just improve without you making an effort because you are just working on the problem, and then suddenly all goes better.
Absolutely. I'm soon hosting a decluttering workshop. And one of the phrases that I keep coming back to is that as above, so below, and as within, so without. The more we can be centered and calm, the more we can, I feel like, influence the world around
Hmm.
us and our experiences by bringing that calm and receiving it as well. We
Hmm.
don't have to be generators of it, but by finding it in ourselves, the world shows us a little bit more of that, I believe.
What I also noticed, going back to my kids, that sometimes things are hard because their behavior it's not exactly what you need at that time, and just one just gets angry, and yeah. And by understanding yourself and understanding you, at a certain time you start to see, okay, so this might be similar, and then okay, so actually this reaction it's very similar to my reaction, and perhaps it's not so different. And from this with my kids, it actually helped me then improve my relation with my mother that was complicated. But then I realized, okay, so maybe it's not that different. So maybe actually she's reacting like this because this is going on. And she's also maybe neurodivergent, but with us, our generation, it was already so different from kids now. So our parents, nobody talked about it, but they had these problems. And I started asking my mother, for example, do you actually felt like this? Or maybe you had this impression, or maybe this happened to you? And she was like, yeah. And then she started to realize also that's her way of functioning, and that all is good. And it's not that in the end that we are crazy or we have some kind of problem or behavioral problem or whatever. It's just once you understand, then you can deal with it much easier.
I love that. The superpower of self-awareness, right? To be able to be in that moment. And I think that comes from yoga and mindfulness practices too, but having consistent practices to be able to be in an
Hmm.
exchange with your children and have that kind of objectivity and recognize, oh, their behavior is reminding me of this. I would behave this way. Now I understand where they're coming from. And having that perspective, I think, is really powerful to diffuse situations that can really be volatile.
And also this somatic experiencing, bringing your awareness to what goes on with your body, it actually helps you feel. So when there is some kind of stimuli, it doesn't matter what, and at a certain point you just get so used to, okay, let's see what's going on with the body, and it's just like, oh my god, this is amazing because you start to understand the reactions. So I remember almost at a certain time that I didn't have much stress, that I was waiting to get stressed by something because I could feel it. So one day I was, I don't know, in the streets, and someone came like really fast and I wasn't expecting. I was like, oh my god, it was just a person passing, so it was not a dangerous situation, but I jumped, and then I could feel my whole body like, oh my god, this is like cold, and there's cold going on, and this is so interesting. And suddenly, even these unpleasant moments become interesting moments because you can notice what's going on, and it also helps dealing with stress.
Yes, noticing and curiosity, that awareness, they all just help us transcend the experiences that we're in. That's a great example of that. Can you give us an idea then of the process or the method of your encore approach?
So it starts with E for embracing sensations. So this is where when we start to bring the awareness to the different sensations because it's so important and it's the base of everything. So that's the start. And then there is also this N, nourishing and nurturing, or related with the three pillars that are movement, food, everything that is related to
Yes.
food and eating, not only the food in itself, that sometimes we want to change and sometimes we don't. However, we can bring also the awareness to the way we eat, how we eat, and it can be very helpful in managing stress, and that will help sleep better. And sleep is like the important thing. So this is all the nourishing and nurturing of ourselves. And this will allow us to arrive to see that it's to calm and to connect with the body. Okay, calm down, connect with the body. And then the O, where we observe what's going on, where we are now that we have started, and to overcome things that might have come up. And then in the R, we recover, we also relieve, and then we can install a practice. And then we arrive at the S, where actually we savor all the work that we've been doing. These steps, basically, all of them are very somatic. Even the eating is very somatic. Like how you chew your food, what goes on, do you chew with one side more than the other, and all these tiny details bring your awareness to your body, to what's going on. And this is really what allows you to get free from pain and stress and anxiety and all that health issues that might come from stress and trauma, and all this stress that comes from neurodiversity, or that can come, but often it comes, yeah. And this integrates all the practice that we've been talking about: breathing, somatic experiencing, TRE. And then it depends from one person to the other. Some people will prefer some techniques to others. Some will perhaps feel that more comfortable with one than the other. And yeah, so then it's all adaptable.
I love it. That's a beautiful framework. I enjoy that you've got those three foundations of health. I see people now and then try to sprinkle some more in, but you can't get past those three. Movement, that our bodies that are designed to do, and food, getting our nourishment from food, and then rest. You can't
Yeah,
bypass getting
exactly.
healing sleep, especially mamas.
But everybody, that's everybody. Mamas, they might be lacking, but sleep for me, it's like the base of everything. If you don't sleep, all the rest will be disturbed by the lack of sleep. So sleep is really important.
And do you find in the practices that you integrate, in the somatic experiencing, in the awareness that you cultivate, do you find that benefits the quality of rest in yourself and the people you work with?
Yeah, because you get calmer, and then it helps with sleep. But it's like a cycle. Yeah, you sleep better, you are calmer. It's food also, you digest better, and then you sleep better, and then it's like a virtuous cycle. And then you move, and also movement becomes easier. Movement is also important because it helps
Hmm.
with sleep, and it helps also with digest, and then so it goes around and around.
Yes, a virtuous cycle indeed. It's so
Yeah.
integrated. And I love the last step, savor. I'm a big fan of celebrating all of your wins, all the progress, no matter how small, recognizing how far we've come. Is savoring also celebrating, or is the focus really on, again, turning inward and noticing the changes and experiencing?
So you can celebrate. There's a lot of celebrating can be done here. So the idea is that finally you stabilize it also with an S, and then you sow what you've been,
Mhm.
all your work, all the results from your work, and then you savor, you celebrate, and then you can sail because you can be independent. So my whole idea is that people are independent. For me, it's very important. I think it's a thing that came with my parents. All my parents wanted it for their kids to be independent, be independent. And for me, it's very important for my kids to be independent, but also the people that work with me. So when they come to me, at a certain time they choose because they really enjoy it, but they don't really need it anymore. So it's just for fun.
Tell us about how you came to crystallize everything that you had learned into your method. How did you distill it into these 7 aspects or focuses within the Encore method?
So I needed a word for my framework, and I wanted embodied, but in French, the word for embodied, it's not a pleasant word, at least for me. It's incarnated, it's directly translated to incarnated, and it's a bit flashy. And there was this film that came up called Un Corps, so in the body, so embodied. A really good film, very independent film, French. And my husband called me in the car. Oh, so there is this film called Encore, and it would be a great name for because it's embodied. It really means embodied, but it's a word that does not exist. But at the same time, it also has a bridge to the word encore in French, that it's again or once again, or
Yes,
you also
we
use it in English, encore, right?
exactly.
And it's this kind of cycle repetition as well. So it's embodied cycle of repetition, a virtuous cycle. And from there, when I was writing my book and I had my framework, I was like, okay, so it would be great to have a word for each letter for a kind of organization thing in my head. And so I decided to develop the framework with 7 steps.
What else would you have if neurodivergent women have come to this podcast and they're opening their awareness to some of these self-care ideas and concepts? But as you said earlier, even a morning routine can be an opportunity for really being overstimulated. When the world can be pretty challenging because it's made for people who work a certain way, and we're finally coming to a place where we embrace that people are going to work in their own ways. Do you have
Hmm.
some advice or ideas of support for neurodivergent women who are working in this world that we're in these days, besides getting your book on your website, which I hope everyone does?
So the thing is, many neurodivergent women, they know that there's something going on, but not necessarily that they are neurodivergent. So depending on, so now younger generations, they know, but women my age, for example, and older, they don't really know that it could be. So even the word, it's like, what does that mean? Like, so I would start with, if they feel sometimes that they feel a little crazy, okay? And they know it's not their period, because it cannot be, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes it can be, but sometimes it's something else. And it's not the menopause either. Check further. So in my book, there's a list of all the different things that might happen when you are neurodivergent. There's a list, but this is also things that you can find on the internet, like outside my book. And check if they find themselves in the different categories. And from there, you might say, okay, so I might be like this. And then, okay, so maybe that's why I react like that. And then you start perhaps looking back and saying, oh, okay, so that thing that happened, like that makes more sense now, because maybe it's related to the way I function and not to just being crazy or feeling angry. And maybe the feeling angry, it's because there's some kind of noise that is just there present, like very annoying. Or maybe it's just someone eating an apple, but you don't really necessarily understand that noise. It's so disturbing that your whole body will react to it, like it would react if there was a predator. So yeah, so I would start with trying to understand the origin of what might be going on.
I think understanding what those triggers are, the things that start to swing us out of balance, and as well as having the tools that bring us back into balance, it's both
And then
sides of a
breathing.
coin.
Breathing works. So breathing, it's easy, it's free, everybody can do it. and basically to exhale a little longer than the inhale through the nose if possible. It already makes something wonderful. So for example, inhaling through the nose and exhaling like you are blowing out candles 3 times, 5 times. It takes less than 5 minutes, sometimes even less than 1 minute, but you immediately feel that it helps and you can feel the change in your body. So, yeah, start with breathing.
Beautiful. It's a great reminder. I think people just want to overlook it. Breathing couldn't be that powerful, but it is
But it
so
is so
powerful.
powerful. I used to smoke a lot, so my breathing was like awfully dysfunctional. And then I quit smoking, and it took me a long time to change the way I breathe. But it's amazing. It's amazing how it changes all, and it's so powerful. And we all think that we know how to breathe because we all do it, but not necessarily the better way. And it's amazing, for example, how one can lose weight just changing the breathing. So when I start working on my breathing, like really a lot, I actually lost weight just with the breathing. And I tested. So I tested with the food, and okay, I didn't change the food, just the way I was breathing, also at night, and so on. And it really changes a lot. And your health.
Incredible. Absolutely. I believe it completely because our breath is such a powerful way to bring us out of that triggered stress state, bring us back to parasympathetic balance. So it makes sense. It's one of those things it couldn't possibly, and then come
When you
back to
don't believe it, you can always try and see what happens.
see for
Exactly.
yourself. Oh, this has been lovely. Thank you so much. I love the insights that have come up through our conversations. Is there anything that we haven't had a chance to share that you would really want people to know?
I don't know. I think we covered pretty much everything.
We covered the keystones. You know, I like to ask people what's their favorite practice to help themselves come back into balance out of stress, but we've been talking about that. So I think that we've touched on some favorites there too, breath and getting good rest. And I hope that people will look more into TRE. Sounds fascinating,
TRE, it's great. And the
so
thing about
empowering.
this, oh, that's so this all can be done online. So TRE can be done online and somatic experiencing as well. Also, breath work can be done online. And this is great because, yeah, because you don't have to do it near you if you prefer to work with someone else that it's far. And it's safe as an
Yes.
online practice. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a really good thing to point out, especially since we started the conversation talking about people working through trauma and practices that don't, by the nature of the practice, reactivate those traumatic memories. And so I think those are really beautiful to have in the toolkit. And working with somebody who can guide you through the practice and give you that support and feedback is so important. So thank you for that as well.
In the beginning, it's very important because we aren't always aware. And I remember
Right.
in the beginning, for me, it wasn't so easy. So I really needed someone to guide me and to help me. And it's also much more powerful as a practice. And then as you manage better, then you won't need it. But in the beginning, it's important to set everything well.
Marvelous. Well, we will have the link to your website in the show notes. Can you say the web address one more time for us?
So it's encore.be and it's written encorps.be, like Belgium.
Yes. Thank you for joining us from Belgium, from across the seas. Thank you for bringing these insights. I'm thrilled to help our audience discover these, and I look forward to all of us checking out your book and gaining more of this wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Susie, for having me.
Thanks for listening. You'll find all the resources we discussed today online at happifiedlife.com, along with links to subscribe to Happified on your favorite player and a handy search tool so you can search all of our previous episodes. Help us grow by leaving a quick review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time.
keep on shining.